What is one word or phrase that we should no longer use in the workplace?
Synergy.
Synergy. I want to play two truths and a lie.
Okay.
To start off. Brad Kreiger. Brad is the head of global marketing communications for one of the largest real estate companies in the world, commercial real estate, maybe. Lives on a farm in Indiana and is a farmer. Or shreds guitar and played in a punk rock band. Which one is a lie?
None.
None of them are a lie. They're all true.
It's all true.
So you live on a farm in Indiana.
I do.
And are you a farmer? Would you consider yourself a farmer?
No.
Are you okay?
No, not a very good one.
But you like put on the overalls and you get in a tractor.
I do own
and you
overalls. I do like to drive my tractor.
Okay.
It's part of a family farm, a much larger family farm,
Right.
where my cousins do all the farming. I grew up. My grandfather farmed. He was an old German guy. He was born in Germany and came over and didn't know that America had tractors, and so he farmed everything with horses.
Like when he came here, he farmed with horses.
Yeah, like
Holy
when I was a
cow.
kid. I mean, it sounds like, oh, I must be that. I mean, in the '80s, growing up, like
Yeah.
I was like helping him bale hay as he was driving these like mega teams of horses, like you see on the Budweiser
Really?
commercials. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
Please tell me you have like a photo or something.
Yeah,
or
we've got
like
a few in the house. Yeah,
maybe
so
just
we
a-
moved back. That's where we live now, is on one of those old hay fields. That's where we moved back about 10 years ago. So
That's so crazy and so cool. And I want to talk about your story and more about, the day job. But just to give you a proper intro, LinkedIn tells me you're the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer for Cushman Wakefield. What does that mean?
yeah, so I have the luxury and the privilege of overseeing kind of three parts to our larger team, which is the marketing, the traditional marketing function,
Yeah.
the communications function, and we have a research function as well, all over the world. So we have probably over 750 people in those three categories
Yep.
in 60 countries around the world. And I say the privilege because it's the best team I've ever worked with in my career, and they do work that just blows me away every day. It's a ton of fun.
And that's a lot of people, and that's a lot of places. The world is a pretty big place.
It's decidedly so, although the more you kind of make your way around it, it seems to get smaller.
Well, I want to talk more about that. I have to ask you one other question first. It's a little bit of a curveball. What is one word or phrase that we should no longer use in the workplace?
Synergy.
Synergy. Synergy, that's a good one. Is that something you hear sometimes?
I mean, I use that as an example of, I think we should stop using most of the trite
Yeah.
business lingo that sort of alienates people from, what real work is. I think those who get to know me, who work for me and who work with me over the years, realize that I'm a normal person, we're all normal people, but yet we put on this cloak of whatever it means to be professional or go to the office
Right.
every day. And I'm all about being professional and doing your work with a high degree of quality. But the language, the lingo, like we can leave all of that back in
Yeah.
those 80s Wall Street movies.
I'm down, and synergy especially. I feel like that's one, if you're saying it, I don't know if you really believe what you're saying. Like,
Yeah.
I think I've probably said that like not that long ago and be like, why did I say that?
I use, from work, we'll work remotely or from home, or sometimes I'll take calls in the car. And if my daughter happens to be around, I have a 12-year-old daughter. I always use her as kind of the litmus test. Like,
Right.
And she's pretty wise for her age, but I'll say, do you have any idea what that call was just about? And if she says, not even a clue, like I don't even know what language you were speaking,
Yeah.
then I know, like, okay, that's a good litmus test.
Right, like we need to
Right.
talk more like humans.
Exactly.
Next time.
Exactly.
So okay, well you say you're a normal guy, but I think you're an interesting guy. When I think about commercial real estate and you're an executive, I mean we've worked together for a long time, Fungi Media and Cushman, and when I go into the office, it does feel a little bit more buttoned up than some other companies that we work with. I just think that's like the nature of commercial real estate, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to appreciate real estate, commercial real estate is so intensely local. Your clients typically are surrounding you, and that's why we office anywhere there's major metropolitan areas, big cities, that sort of thing. And so for the culture of the organization, it's a front foot, and I'm using business speak, but you have to constantly be on the front foot. You're constantly in front of your clients. We actually don't own real estate. So for those that don't know Cushman well, we're services providers. So we can build it, buy it, sell it, lease it, manage it, clean it. We can do anything to your real estate. But we wake up every January 1st with sort of $0. We're not just owning assets that appreciate over time. We have to go make our living every day and every week. And I think that sort of culture lends itself to a very fast-paced, very aggressive, front foot aggressive in a good way. And everything that kind of goes around that sort of supports that culture.
Sure.
But it can still be real, right? We can still meet our customers right where they're at and be real people at the same time, be authentic. And I think that's a hallmark of what we're trying to do with our brand.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think I'm really interested in, sort of living in this sort of corporate culture that we live in, and we help other companies communicate. And how do you do it in a way that's human and authentic? And as one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, because you are in this industry maybe that people think of as like handshakes and briefcases and stuff like that.
Right.
So, and like I said, you're a farmer and you are a musician and play guitar, which is something that we've like connected with in the past. What came first? Did you leave high school and become the head of corp communications for the larger
I was born the head of communications, actually.
That's what I figured.
It's kind of weird.
But, that's amazing that it happened that way. I hope that everybody has that same career path.
Yeah, look, my story in a very quick nutshell, I grew up on my grandfather's farm, as I was talking about. It's cool now. It's where I've chosen to move back to for so many reasons that it works with my lifestyle. When you're a teenager, like, that was the last place on earth I wanted to be. I had aspirations to go do cool things. And music was a way, in a very small town in rural Indiana, for me and a few friends to kind of connect on something that would take us away to a different place. And so for us, that was Chicago. And it was coming to Chicago on the weekends and seeing underground bands at bowling alleys that were falling apart, and all ages clubs that we could get into. And that led to like a natural, like, well, we could do that back in Indiana. And so you go to the pawn shop, you buy cheap instruments, and you start, playing music. And eventually you're less terrible than you were when you started. And you try to, invite people to come watch you play in your garage. And then that led all the way through college to us signing an indie label and kind of actually doing the band pretty full time for a very short
Did you go on tour?
We did, yeah. We toured around the Midwest, a little bit of East Coast. And it was fun. To this day, like, it's a part of my... it's one part of who I am.
Yeah.
That, I can still pick up a guitar and use that as an outlet. I can play with my kids now. My daughter is a budding musician and still have friends over, and we'll put a band together. We just did that a few months ago. We had a big party over the summer, and it's cool. It's an outlet and an escape that it just helps kind of balance everything out in my life.
I'm curious, from your perspective, does that skill set or just that passion, does that like work itself into your day job?
So I'll take my story just a little bit, another couple chapters forward, and I'll answer your question in that way. So I went to, my first year of college was at Columbia College in Chicago, to art school, and I wanted to do production work, a lot like what you're doing today, more on the audio side. I wanted to record bands and do live sound and that sort of thing. That was my life's passion at the age of 18.
Yeah.
And as the band and things started evolving, that took me back to Indiana so that we could do more touring, which put a pause on school for me. And then when I went back to school, I went back to Purdue University, which was our one of our great schools in the state of Indiana. And I had a couple of mentors at the time, and I was doing like production work off the side and touring. And I had a guy who said to me, you're pretty good in the production space, but your instincts for business are even better. And if you go back to college, don't go back to art school, go get like a business degree.
Really?
And then you can combine the two and do anything that you want to do.
Yeah.
And it was like sage advice that I took seriously. I probably didn't know how valuable that advice was at the time. How could I?
Yeah.
And so I did. I went back to Purdue. I took an intro to PR class as just one of the, you fill out the bingo sheet. And
we'll try one of these.
Met the person who would become my next professional mentor, who's still kind of a friend to this day. And I remember taking that first kind of PR class and going, like that's what I want to do with my life. Like
Really?
I could see it, it just all kind of clicked. And to answer your original question, it was all adding up for me that even in high school when we were, creating flyers and Xeroxing them at 7-Eleven and taping them up in windows and building a website in the mid 90s, which was pretty complicated to do. Like I was marketing then, the creative side of my brain that led me to music and the drive that led me out of Indiana was perfect for the corporate environment, right? Because there's an actual staircase and a ladder to climb. And then when you actually get into these, sort of professional marketing roles, the creative side, I mean, look at what you do every day, right? I mean, you're bridging that gap between, the business strategy and the creative side every day. Right. And so I actually think unless you've got such a career pattern that has zigged and zagged, I actually don't think any of it is sort of a waste or takes you off path.
Sure, yeah.
I think you bring it all to every role. And I've used, I would be in charge of a mega sales conference for a big company and walk in and be like, the stage lighting looks a little off.
Yeah, totally.
And the production company would get offended. And I'm like, no, I used to do this for a living.
Yeah.
Can we try to do X, Y, and Z? I want to warm up the color of our CEO a little bit, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And
fast forward to, you're leading marketing communications now for Cushman Wakefield, have been for a while. Mm-hmm. You mentioned research. So it's like there's marketing, communications, and research, sort of this like three-legged stool, right?
That's right.
How do you go about, where do you even start? Like, how do you eat that elephant, I guess?
Yeah, it was a unique situation when I started at Cushman about 8 years ago. There were about 3 companies coming together through a big kind of private equity-backed merger. And so the job itself at that time was help us be an architect. Let's put together what best in class looks like. Let's put together what the future of marketing and communications research would look like for this company. And let's do it in such a way, because there wasn't a lot of infrastructure. When you think about smaller companies coming together to form a giant company,
that's messy.
Yeah, no one company's infrastructure really could scan the globe. The goal was to make this a company that could go public, that would withstand all of the kind of Fortune 500 public company.
And you started needs. When that merger was happening.
Like right in between the announcement of the merger and the closing of the deal.
Holy
which,
cow.
If you guys have, if anybody's worked in a big merger, there's that kind of period in between before the deal is closed that everything is on the table and you're making decisions and you're trying to figure out the future all the way from who takes the mantle forward to like what is the mantle, like who is the company, and like how do we talk about that branding. And I think about those kinds of moments in my career where it's all about getting people to follow a vision and follow a mission and bring the best out of themselves, and that was the real opportunity that drew me here. If you don't, I think you risk losing some of the value that you bring when you bring people together, and that's true in a big merger. It's also true in just building a team and bringing people together, setting a new direction, setting a new mission.
What's a day look like for you? I'm sure every day is different.
They are. You try to take a step back, and like half of your brain has to be focused on what you think the next thing needs to be, or if you have that vision like clearly mapped out, a transformation journey, whatever you want to call it, then you're kind of following a roadmap or a guide path. And so it's not like you're just walking kind of in the blind, but half of your brain has to be sort of focused on how are we progressing along this vision? What's the next stage? If we've made major, goals or hit major goals and milestones along the way, then you have to start laying the track for the next few. And so that's sort of like part of your role. The other part of your brain is like, how are we executing every day? How are we showing up for our clients? How are we showing up for our own stakeholders and our own business internally? Are we doing better today than we did yesterday? Are we more efficient this year than we were last year? And are we winning? What are our win rates? And how are we playing a role, to help support all of that work? And that at times can feel like a factory, right? It's like a widget shop because it's such a high volume business that we're supporting on a regular basis. But again, back to the people, you're kind of like keeping tabs on people. How is everybody doing? How are they feeling? Are we overworking our teams? Are we underutilized in different areas? So you're constantly fine tuning the delivery engine while also trying to make sure that the vision is moving in the right direction. And you're doing all of that in an environment that's like sliding sand, right? In a business environment today that we're all working in, which, the volatility we've seen just over the last 3 to 5 years, pretty remarkable. It's a lot of fun to be
Well,
honest.
it's very entrepreneurial in my mind.
Yeah.
You know, and I love that, and kind of just building this thing that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously, commercial real estate is, you know, right now there's definitely a downturn. I guess some people would call
Sorry,
it.
I'm not familiar. Yeah.
Some news that I wanted to share with you, Brad. I don't
This
know
is
if
the
you've heard about-
hard-hitting part of the interview? Is that what's about to happen?
This is some hard-hitting stuff. I'm going to really grill you. Like, what does the marketing and communications function do when people are questioning the fate of skyscrapers?
And we just had this a similar, you know, sort of existential conversation
Right.
around the fate of buildings just 3 years ago in the heart of the pandemic, right? So I guess unfortunately this is kind of a familiar place to be in for our industry. The easy answer to your question, we try to put the smartest people in our organization to the front of the marketplace so that they can answer those questions for our clients, right? Because if we're too wrapped up in our own head around the fate of, you know, a downtown or a particular building, what we're not thinking about is it's actually our clients that own those buildings and occupy
Right.
those buildings. And so we have an outstanding research function. I'll plug the research side of my team for a second and just
Research,
say,
if you're watching this,
this is for you.
good job.
You know, seriously though, we have some of the best thought leaders, I think, in the
Yeah.
entire industry. And if you start with that, like we have, you know, just people who analytically can read a trend, make a forecast, understand what clients need. But the great thing about the management style and the culture of the company that I was just describing, those folks are empowered to go out to the front line and speak the truth no matter what. And
Right.
it's not always great news for the industry or
Right.
great news for a particular quarter, but we're building a long-term commitment with our clients. And if you speak the truth all the time, every time, then you become known as the company that gives the best advice. And when you're the company that gives the best advice, that's brand loyalty.
Yeah.
And so
Especially when it's people that at the end of the day is what you're selling. I
that's
mean,
right. But that's what we do in a downturn. To answer your question, we take the best thinking within our entire organization, we package it in such a way that's easily digestible. I mean, this is right in your kind of sweet spot, right? And we just get it in front of those clients as fast as possible.
Is that the case right now still?
It is. I mean, it's cyclical in our industry. So when the transactional side of the business slows down,
Yeah.
you're supporting, you know, sales as they come. And so if that part of the engine slows, the proactive part sort of kicks in how often you're proactively reaching out to clients. So there may not be a specific transaction that you're bidding, you know, work on, but it actually makes the challenge even greater then for our organization, which is, okay, how do we proactively go reach out to clients, assuming the problem that they're trying to solve? And again, bringing that best kind of thinking and advice. You're doing all of this in partnership with the people who actually meet and serve the clients every day on the sales force.
Right.
So it's why I'm so proud of this team that I get to work with every day, because there are only so many people that see, you know, stress and they see hard times, and they're like, I can do my best work right now. And,
Right.
and they actually are drawn to that.
Did that inform your recent campaign? You guys launched a campaign, Life is What We Make It. Did that sort of attitude inform that whole thing? Let's turn these lemons into lemonade, so to speak.
100%. I mean, that whole soliloquy I think I just gave, if you could, like, you know, put a tagline on it, life is what we make it. That really is the essence of what we're trying to communicate. And the kind of entendre to that phrase then is, you know, if life is what we make it, then we make it and fill in the blank. And so it's not about the thing itself, the deal, the transaction, the building, even the brick and mortar. It's about the impact that work has on the community, on the shareholders, on the stakeholders of the building. And so that's different for all of our clients. I'll give you an example. We're sitting in Chicago right now. We do some facilities and maintenance work at Lincoln Park Zoo. And so we could either
It's a
say,
messy facilities
proposition.
management.
I took my daughter there a few months ago, and she said, can we get into the lion cage because your company does something here? And I said, that's a terrible idea. No, we're not going to do that.
Can we just get a sneak peek in the lion cage?
Yeah.
Maybe
So you could
the
look
ostriches.
you could look at that work and you could say, oh, okay, we maintain, you know, these boiler systems and these water filtration systems, and our KPIs are X, Y, and Z. Or you could take a step back and go, what do we really do here? We help the zoo, our client, be operational, be, you know, in business, be working every day, so that the children of Chicago have a great place to come on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a stretch. If you just draw
Right.
the through line through and go, okay, well, what are you really doing? We had facility managers in the heart of COVID when it was really pretty dark and pretty scary. In New York, city's on lockdown, but they're riding the train every day to go to hospitals because to keep those hospitals operational and open and clean, like they're doing more than cleaning buildings at that point, right?
Sure.
You're making an impact on the world and on the community. So that's what that campaign's all about. It's teasing that out.
I love that.
You look at all of the tactics, and it's so digital now, you can
Sure.
measure everything. So the videos that we put out, I think
James's grandma watched this 3 times. And she fell asleep at 2 minutes in and started picking it back up 3 minutes later.
100%. Yeah, if she doesn't fall asleep, then that's like step one.
That's success
You know,
right
you're
there.
onto something. No, the videos are getting viewed more than any of the other stuff we've put out in a long time. The resonance, you know, and I'll meet with clients regularly, and I can tell you like empirically that it's resonating with clients. I think we've captured a tone that speaks to where just the world is at, and where people are at. And people want purpose in their work, and that's pretty interesting. You know, all the digital kind of marketing, you know, techniques, partners that we have, partnerships that we're developing in real time. I mean, we've done some of that work together, Matt, and just, you know, let's find a non-traditional way to connect this message to an audience, and let's use all the tactics available to us. I think we'd be crazy not to. I've got just an incredible team that they could be a B2C marketing team because they're so tuned in to what people are listening to, what people are reading, what channels are relevant, what's the difference between, you know, X and Insta, and should we be on WeChat, and if so, how and why? And
you're just like, thank God, because I am not going to get on TikTok.
Yeah, I mean,
don't have
so
time.
Here's an example. We just launched a campaign called Behind the Numbers, which takes a lot of that thought leadership that I was talking about. But the cool idea that Oliver and Jennifer and a couple of our team had was, let's do these in total TikTok style. So we're going to self-shoot them. Sorry about this part, but we're going to self-shoot them on iPhones. We'll subtitle every word of every video. They'll only be 60 to 90 seconds long, and we should be able to crank 1 or 2 of these out every other day for, you know, in perpetuity. For basically nothing. I mean, they cost nothing to create. The first one that we launched, I think it had something like 50,000 views within a week.
Awesome.
And these are like, you know, our economists and senior thought leaders just literally trying to make sense of what happens. So the Fed, you know, puts a piece of data out, and it's like, what does it mean for real estate?
I mean, at the end of the day, we're storytellers, and that's what you are, and that's what your team does. And it's whatever the tool that works.
That's
you know, and it's the right tool for the right platform, or the right tool for the right moment. And I think that's a brilliant way that I feel like everybody should be doing that anyways. I mean, just be like, I want to share a quick little tip. I mean, you have your audience at your fingertips with this freaking device that I have in my pocket right now, you know?
Right. I took mine out of my pocket because I thought that would be more professional for this shoot.
I didn't.
So you know.
I am not sorry, Demian. I apologize. I'll put it back in my pocket for now. We'll act like it didn't happen.
You're crazy if you don't use every channel at your disposal. Whether you are going to order a pizza on a Friday night or you want to buy $1 billion skyscraper, probably starts with a Google search in some way or some fashion. And again, there's no hard and fast rule. There's no channel that's better. This one is, you know, 10x better than this one. I just think if you approach it with the mindset of everything's fair game, let's dial in the right, you know, cocktail of channels to hit the tone that we need with this audience at that time.
I do have to ask you this question. As a musician, as a guitar player, as a guy who toured in bands and was actually signed,
Indie
label, yeah. What's your favorite cover song to play?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or now, maybe.
Well, we play a song. These are going to be obscure, but we played a song actually on our album by a band called the Ohio Express, which was called Beg, Borrow, and Steal. And the funny thing about that song is they were ripping off the Kingsmen's Louie Louie. And so I have a love for all things kind of 60s when it comes to music, whether it's, you know, just the American garage rock thing, the British invasion thing, or even like the reggae music coming out of Jamaica in the 60s. And so when we were doing our band thing, garage rock was a big part of the influence on us. And so we would love to cover any, like the Sonics and any of those old kind of 60s garage bands, because it was so akin to what we were trying to do, right? When the Beatles, you know, landed on Shea Stadium and played Ed Sullivan, like every kid in the 60s went to a pawn shop, bought the cheapest guitar they could, and just started a band in their garage. And it's, I wasn't that tuned in to the music of the 60s when I was in my childhood like I am today. But the process was exactly the same. Saw a band, got inspired, bought a cheap guitar, started a band. And so, it's not maybe the Jimi Hendrix answer or whatever you're fishing for. But when we cover songs, they're usually like obscure reggae songs or obscure, kind of 60s garage rocks, because it's such a nod to the music that we love, and kind of, really founded a lot of our musical beginning. But I know this isn't like a musical interview, so.
Well, it could be. That could be a different podcast.
That would be a fun podcast to do.
I'm down to do that. We should do that. Well, Brad, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your insights around marketing, music, and farming.
We'll talk more farming next time. We'll get into the cabbage patch and really kind of go through that. Thanks for having me and all the great work you've done for us over the years, and I've always appreciated it.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad.
Take care.
El Fangal.